When I say fully complete your profile, what are we talking about? Well, some very basic things like your business name and address and phone number, but also your hours and your services. A lot of people don't complete that part of it. They think, well, the name of the company is Jones Criminal Defense, so of course we're a criminal defense firm. But in your jurisdiction, does criminal defense only include white-collar crimes, or does it exclude them? Does it only include crimes that are prosecuted in superior court? What about crimes that are prosecuted in municipal court? What about offenses that are not even considered crimes? Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast, where on today's show, we're going to be talking about Google Business Profile. Now, I'm sure all of you remember what it was like to set up your Google Business Profile, right? When you first decided that you were going to exist online, you had to fill out one of those, online questionnaires, and then you got a postcard in the mail. And you had to use the code on the postcard to be able to set up your profile. And oftentimes there were additional requirements. And I say oftentimes, not always. If you're doing this before 2010, the requirements were a little less stringent than they are now. But typically you were going to have to take a picture or a video of your physical location, and then you're going to have to send it to Google so they can verify that you really do exist. And then you were going to ultimately be able to set up your profile. So I know a lot of people once upon a time said, I don't want to be bothered with that. Like, I'll get around to it. Some people lose the postcard and have to ask for another one. But what ends up happening now is I think everyone recognizes, everyone that owns a business, but particularly if you own a law firm, you recognize how important it is to exist on the digital sphere, right? So even if you are not using digital marketing as your primary marketing tool, you might have another primary source, especially if you are a B2B lawyer. But even with B2C, I know plenty of lawyers that don't get clients from doing online advertising, but they do get clients converted by virtue of having a strong online presence, because nowadays you're going to be vetted even if you were personally referred. Now the public is much more savvy. They are oftentimes doing their comparison shopping even long before they have a conversation with you. And because of that, your online presence takes on a significant meaning, even if that is not your primary marketing source. So where you exist online, of course, needs to be omnipresent. We've talked about the idea of omnipresence, i.e., you want to be everywhere. And there are ways to be everywhere without taking up every ounce of your time, every moment of your existence, being physically everywhere. We know how to create content that can be blitzed in lots of different places. But long before you even get there, you want your home online. We oftentimes think of the website as the home online, but when somebody does a basic search of your name, the thing that will come up on Google is your Google Business Profile. So how are you going to optimize that profile? Well, that's what we're talking about today. But just before we dive in, I want to remind you that if you're finding us here on YouTube, we would love it if you would subscribe to the channel so that you are always getting news you can use and updates about the podcast, and also about things that are going on here at Law Firm Mentor. But also, we invite you to check out what's coming up, really high impact value for you, our Marketing and Sales Summit that is happening September 18th through 20th in lovely New Orleans, Louisiana. So we are really excited about this particular summit. I mean, we have retreats throughout the course of the year. If you are a Law Firm Mentor client, the retreats are included in the cost of you being a client of LFM. But the beautiful thing about these retreats is that we do also sell them a la carte. So if you're not a client, you can come to the retreat, you can get that high impact value, you can experience our wonderful community, and you can also learn about coaching. But more importantly, you can actually get the tools that you need related to the topic that we're covering in the retreat. And this retreat is one that I know is timely for all of us. It is marketing and sales. Right now, we are in very much a deficit of attention and a deficit of trust. The world has become a very dark place, and we have become very polarized politically and socially across the world. And so this is now a time for us as law firm owners to really lean into finding not only the how, but also the best strategy, the best why of our marketing. because the easier a time we have attracting the people that are really our people, and the easier time we have engaging them in a really meaningful conversation, so that when they are purchasing from us, they don't feel sold to, but they feel that they have been cared for, and they are that much more inclined to actually hire us. That comes through learning how to sell, and that comes from having high impact marketing and having your marketing on autopilot. And that's really where a lot of law firms struggle. So our Law Firm Mentor Marketing and Sales Summit is coming up again September 18th through 20th in New Orleans, Louisiana. You can learn more about that at events.lawfirmmentor.net. All right. So let's dive into talking about Google Business Profile. So I want to give you the top 3 strategies that we have seen to give people a lot of positive traction with Google Business Profile. Now, I should tell you, we do provide that service through our marketing arm here at Law Firm Mentor. So if you don't want to do this yourself, we do have tools that can help you with that. You can always hop on a call with one of our growth strategy team members and they can talk you through it. But there's some basic things that everyone can do. This is like super simple stuff just to get you started, and you'll see traction on this right away. Like, this is like a no-brainer. Everybody should be doing this as soon as they open a business. They should be existing online and optimizing this profile. All right. Step number 1, you want to fully complete your profile. Okay. That's kind of simple, but it's also kind of not. So when I say fully complete your profile, what are we talking about? Well, some very basic things like your business name and address and phone number, but also your hours and your services. A lot of people don't complete that part of it. They think, well, the name of the company is, Jones Criminal Defense. So of course we're a criminal defense firm. But in your jurisdiction, does criminal defense only include white collar crimes, or does it exclude them? Does it only include crimes that are prosecuted in superior court? Or what about crimes that are prosecuted in municipal court? What about offenses that are not even considered crimes, right? What about DWI, right? Petty disorderly persons, things that you can get a citation for, but not necessarily be incarcerated for. Those are questions that the public might not even know to ask. And so if you don't specify on your profile, here are the exact services that I provide, you oftentimes will get false positives, right? You'll get people finding you, and then they find you, and then they take up time, valuable time that your intake team is devoting to your prospects, taking information from a person who then asks for a service that you don't provide. So very easy way to call that out, separate the wheat from the chaff, and have those services listed. The hours is also something that I think a lot of people take for granted. In fact, the number of businesses that I have seen will just have the standard 9 to 5 Monday through Friday available on the profile, not specifying that they actually open at 8 a.m. or that they don't close until 7 p.m. or that they're only available on a Sunday by appointment only. Right? Those are critical pieces of information that the public needs. And if you don't provide that information and someone feels annoyance because they thought you were open until 5 and you really close at 3 or 4, or they thought you were open on Saturday, but you're really not, then they're less inclined to actually go through the further hoops and hurdles to work with you. They're going to find someone who makes it easier for them to work with. Okay. Now, of course, you want to put your website up there, and you want to put a business description. And your description, by the way, can be more than just we provide X to Y, right? It should be your magic statement, your impact statement, the description of who you are, who you serve, etc. Right? So for those of you that are not familiar with the idea of an impact statement or magic statement or an intro statement, whatever you want to call it, I'll give you ours for Law Firm Mentor. Anyone that knows me knows that I say Law Firm Mentor is a business coaching service for solo and small law firm attorneys. We help you to grow your revenues, crush chaos in business, and make more money, right? So you know who we serve, you know what we are, what we do, who we do it for, who we do it with, and you know what those services will entail, right? Globally. Now, it doesn't say we offer marketing, sales, systems, people, leadership, strategic advice, et cetera, et cetera. We don't go into the nitty gritty and the weeds, but you have an idea from a description of the impact that we make. We help you to grow revenue, crush chaos, make more money, right? Those things are pretty definitive, pretty distinct. You want to have something like that up on your Google Business Profile. All right. Next, you want to collect and respond to reviews consistently. Now, we have had full episodes here at Law Firm Mentor on the podcast about reviews. It is really important that you get reviews because just as personal referrals are easier to convert, people that read your reviews are easier to convert. They already have a heightened level of that know, like, and trust factor because they are consuming information that is, in their mind, comparable to a personal referral. Why? It's perceived to be less biased. You say you're the greatest cannabis attorney in all of the country does not make it so. It makes it more likely so if John and Susie and David, the investors who worked with you to set up the Era LLC so that they could work in the cannabis industry, if they say you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, it becomes more credible. So you want to think about that when you are thinking about whether or not you should devote the time to getting reviews. You absolutely should. And in terms of your reviews, obviously you want to solicit people to give you positive reviews. Now, there are a whole host of different programs out there, platforms that you can use where you can actually automate that process so that every time someone interacts with your sales team, they interact with your attorneys, they're closing their case, they're opening their case, and you can ask them for a review of the process at that point. Absolutely, you should do that. But you also want to think about not just the people that you solicited who presumably gave you a positive review, right? You don't want to ask somebody unless you know it's going to be positive. But there are people that are going to give negative reviews, right? In fact, the people who are most inclined to instinctively give a review are people who are pissed off that they didn't get what they wanted or felt that they were not treated well or whatever the case may be. Right. So that's part of the reason why you want to be intentional about soliciting positive reviews, because you don't have to be intentional about soliciting negative reviews. They're coming your way whether you want them or not, especially in today's day and age. But those negative reviews also require some attention. You want to respond to all reviews and particularly your negative reviews. Now, you might be saying, well, I'm a lawyer. I'm not allowed to fire back at these people. Shouldn't I just leave it be? And the answer is no. You want to demonstrate, you want to use your response to the review in order to further market and positively promote your law firm. So we know not everybody's going to be happy, no matter how great a job you did. And unfortunately, oftentimes the people who are the least deserving of being unhappy, the people who you gave the most to, the people who got the greatest service, who took up the majority of your time and energy, who paid you the least, are the ones who are the most unhappy, right? But we have to deal with that in the practice of law. So if they're going to be out there, you might as well use them to your advantage. You should obviously check your jurisdiction for what you can and cannot say, but generally speaking, lawyers cannot disclose information about a case to defend themselves against a client. Now, having said that, I know a lot of people say, well, there are exceptions in the RPCs for defending oneself. Typically, case law, Office of Attorney Ethics, advisory opinions are going to tell you that that relates to defending yourself in the course of an adjudicative proceeding. So if you are fighting someone's request to disgorge your legal fees, or if someone has accused you of unethical conduct, then you can discuss the conduct with the tribunal to defend yourself. But if somebody goes online and says, oh, this lawyer sucks, they've never returned my phone calls on time, you cannot, in most jurisdictions, go online and respond by saying, here's the call log showing that every single time this person called, I called them back in under 24 hours as promised in their retainer agreement. Here's a copy of that agreement, right? You can't do that. And it's frustrating. And I really hope that at some point in time, that the bar associations rally to get those rules changed, because we are now in an age where people fight fire with fire, right? And so once upon a time, it was presumed that lawyers were so much more intelligent and so much more educated and had so many more resources. Nowadays, I don't know that that's true, especially that the public has access to things like ChatGPT, right? So the public has become increasingly intelligent, knowledgeable, sophisticated, educated about the world in which we practice law for quite some time. All right. I'm getting on a soapbox here. As you can tell, this kind of ramps me up a little bit, that we can't respond to defend ourselves to the public. But unfortunately, At this point, we are very constrained in that area. So we have to respect that rule because, I have heard about different bar associations coming after lawyers for that type of conduct. So having said that, what can you say? Well, you need to acknowledge that the person is unhappy and you need to express regret about that, because even though you might not agree with their take, you don't want unhappy clients, and you want people to know you don't want unhappy clients, and you want people to know that if they ever were unhappy, that they could come to you, they could express what their concern is, you would be open to having a conversation, and you would be open to making it right for them. And that's effectively what you want to communicate to the person. Even if you know the person is at the scorched earth period where there's nothing you can say to make them happy, there's nothing you can do to make them happy, you're kind of stuck with that, right? So think about it this way. What you're signaling is information about you that someone reading that review could take away and say, okay, high integrity person. I get that everybody's not going to be happy. Look at how they handled it. The worst thing you can do is respond in an equal amount of fury and fire toward the client, no matter how angry they make you, no matter how much falsity they spew at you and to the public about you. Because if you respond with a smackback, the person who is unaware of the conflict, not believing them, not believing you, not knowing either of you, is going to say, wow, that lawyer's nasty. Right? And whether it is true or not, people perceive that the lawyer has the upper hand. The lawyer is the business owner. The lawyer has the power. People will perceive that the lawyer has the money. People will perceive that you are, Goliath, and this former client of yours is David. So you don't want to be Goliath beating up on David, even though David is throwing stones at you. Now, having said that, I always tell people the best way to fight negative reviews is by going out and getting more positive reviews, right? Live in the world of the positive. Wallow in the positive, and you don't have time to get smacked by the negative. You got to deal with it, but don't deal with it with all of your energy, all of your fervor, all of your negativity, reciprocating the negative energy that came at you. That rarely does any good. All right. Third strategy for optimizing your Google business profile. And by the way, I hope that as you are here listening to us, if you're checking us out on YouTube, that you subscribe to the channel, and also that you like this episode and share this episode, right? There are plenty of lawyer friends I know that you have that would very much benefit from hearing this information and the information that we share twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays here at the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast. Please let's do your friends a solid and share this information with them. All right. Third strategy for optimizing your Google business profile is that you want to use keywords in your descriptions and services. Okay. It is not enough for you to simply use keywords somewhere in the post. You want to use them in your descriptions and your services. Now, naturally include things that would describe what you do, and naturally include the location. Now, we've talked about this before, but location is very key for most practices, right? Unless you have a federal practice. And even then, when you have a federal practice, you still want to do the local game to a certain degree, because while you might be able to get clients all over, people are more likely to want to hire your immigration firm if you are in the state, in the region, drivable to and from the person who is hiring, right? Someone in Ohio could absolutely hire an immigration attorney in Florida, but that happens less likely and less commonly than people in Ohio hiring an Ohio attorney, people in Florida hiring a Florida attorney, etc. So for most law firms, not all, but for most practices, you're going to want to really be playing the local game. That means you want to say, I am a real estate attorney in Utah, if that's where you are, right? You want to talk about your city, talk about your county, talk about your state. Make sure that those words are included, because again, that helps Google when it is searching your content, indexing your content, to know where you are, so that when people are regionally close to you, you're going to be shown sooner than the firm that is 2, 3, 4, 5 states over. But you also want to think about it so that the person who is learning about your firm is again cued into the fact that you are serving a particular demographic and serving a particular area. one of the challenges that firms have is that they want to drive up their ranking on their search engine by being able to get as many hits as possible. But you don't want to clog up your intake department taking calls from people who you could never serve, right? So if everybody comes to your, website, because you've got the coolest website that talks about real estate law, right? If you are America's Next Top Real Estate Lawyer, great, right? However, if people that are coming to you, you only practice in Tennessee, and you have such amazing content that you are pulling people from all over the country going to your website to research, because you write a lot of blogs and you have a lot of videos and it's very informative and helpful. And let's say you've got a great personality, right? People really like to connect with you online. That's great for getting people to your website. But if your Google Business Profile had specified that you were only in a certain area, you would get people who are in your area or more likely to get it, right? There are always people that don't read, but there are people that don't read. And then there are people that don't hunt down information, right? Most people are going to see the obvious. So if you say Tennessee real estate attorney, you are more likely to get the folks that you can actually serve. Okay. Now, one thing I want to just kind of tail out with this is, we talked about the three key strategies for optimizing your Google Business Profile. But this is one, I'm just going to give you like a little bonus tip here. This is one that I think a lot of times we don't spend enough energy on, because most lawyers are not treating their law firm like a commodity where, soap is on sale this week at Walmart, right? You are a fixed fee, whether it's flat fee or hourly or contingent or subscription. You have a model for how you deliver your fees, right? But I want you to think about the idea of posting weekly updates, right? So you can get some traction on the frequency, but you also want to think about posting offers. And offers can be anything from a certain percentage off consultations right now, or it could be, sign up before a certain time and there will be something in it for the client. Now, before, I can already hear those of you that have followed this podcast for any length of time, I can already hear the pushback with you say, hey, wait a minute. We don't want to go attracting the bargain hunters, right? We don't want the people who are just kicking the tires. We would probably get that if we were to start talking about discounts. So I'm not talking about just promoting that something is going to be cheap or free, right? You don't want to connote cheap or free in your offer, but you do want to give a little push, a little incentive, a little inducement for the people that are happening upon your content to take action upon it. And sometimes if people know that there is a time constraint, right? If I buy now, or if I buy within the next 30 days, or if I buy within the next 2 weeks, I am more likely to get a better deal. They're going to have that in their mind. Now, you can weed out people who are of that mind frame and tire kickers by virtue of how you engage with them through the intake process, right? And if you haven't gone through our intake mastery course, I highly recommend it. You can find that on our website, but if you are somebody that knows the strategies for how to engage with them through intake and how to sell to them in your sales conversation, then ultimately you're going to weed those people out long before you actually get to the point of even making an offer to let them hire you through the process of your sales conversation. All right. Today, guys, we have been talking about Google Business Profile. Just a reminder that our Marketing and Sales Summit is coming up here at Law Firm Mentor mid-September, September 18th through the 20th, and it is happening in lovely New Orleans, Louisiana. So if you are down for the beignets and you want to get your marketing and sales knowledge at that time with us in person, please check us out at events.lawfirmmentor.net. That's where you can find out about the summit. And of course, we're happy to see you here always. We're here on Mondays and Thursdays here on our YouTube channel for the podcast. And of course, those of you that are out in the podcast verse, if you're on Stitcher, Spotify, Google, all the places where the podcast can be found, we're happy to have you out there as well. And we hope that you are subscribed to the channel. So of course, you are getting your podcast delivered to you twice a week here wherever you are listening to the podcast. So with that, everyone, we're going to tail out. It's been great talking to you this week, and I'm happy that you're with us. We will see you on our next episode.